Welcome to the Connect Like Minds podcast. I'm your host, Sharryse. I interview people making a difference in their communities within their creative spaces. And today's special guest is a U.S. Air Force veteran and the co-founder of Lotic AI. Welcome to the Connect Like Minds podcast, Bill Welser.
Thanks, Sharryse. How are you?
I am doing great. How about you?
It's funny when people ask, how are you? So many times we're looking for like that one word, okay or fine. I'm tired. I'm tired today. Like I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, but your energy already is like you have me pumped. So let's roll.
Well,
It's
to
gonna be
make you feel
fun.
better, I didn't have much sleep last night either. So I say I'm great.
All right,
I'm
so
great because I'm doing this interview with you. That's why I'm great.
fantastic.
And I'm happy to have you here. So we're going to jump right into the interview. So let's start from the beginning. Tell everyone where you're from.
So I'm actually an Air Force brat. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, and I moved about every 2 years growing up. I affiliate mostly with Los Angeles because my first location that I lived at as an adult was LA, and then I moved back there. I've probably spent a grand total of like 16 years of my adult life in LA, but I live in Austin, Texas right now. So I'm kind of all over the place. My accent changes based on where I am because I just have I've lived so many different spots in the country.
Nah, I feel that. I'm originally, if I was born in Virginia, but I moved to Maryland with my mom, and she remarried to my stepfather. And so, and now I live in North Carolina, and I've been here since 2011. So most of my adult life as well. It's just like, well, I'm from North Carolina because I've been here long enough.
That's right. Where in Virginia?
I was born in Williamsburg, and we probably lived there till I was like 3 or something like that. But
right on. I went to the University of Virginia for undergrad.
so
So just down the street.
Yeah, literally. That's pretty cool. Well, when I was young, like maybe around like 10 or 11, and my dad used to come pick me up, and I'd stay in Williamsburg. We would go to William and Mary's Law School a lot. Just walking up and down campus, like walking up and down Colonial Williamsburg. So I do have some interesting memories from Virginia, but I never got a chance to go to Virginia State or anything like that. So, but I know where it is.
Yeah. Well, Old Town Williamsburg is beautiful.
Oh yeah,
it's just
for
amazing.
sure, for sure. How was life for you growing up? Since you're a military brat, you're going all over. Like, how was that?
It was challenging. I mean, there's two ways I'm sure there's many ways, but I think there's two extremes of how you can approach being a military child that's moving around a lot. So like the one extreme is I am who I am, I'm going to be who I am. And like, come hell or high water, like I'm not going to adjust to where I'm moving. And then the other, extreme is, hey, I'm moving into a new space.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to adjust my behaviors, adjust my personality, I'll keep my same values, but I'll just have to adjust.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was more toward that latter approach. And I really just found myself adjusting nonstop to, going from Northern Virginia, like the Washington, D.C. area, to Southwest Oklahoma, where like the nearest Walmart was 50 minutes away at the time, right? Like, wow, like huge changes, right?
Yeah.
And so I would just allow myself to shift with the change. And I found that really rewarding because you get a chance to really experience the space and experience the community and get to know people at kind of their root.
Yeah. I think military kids or military brats, however you want to name them or title them, I believe they're the most resilient people in the world because you're young, so you don't get to choose where you want to go, and you're just going wherever your parents are moving to at the time, and you have to get new friends every time you move or adjust to a new school. And so I believe that definitely plays a part into who you are today.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Do you come from a 2-parent household?
I do. So my dad was he spent 35 years in the military
Hmm.
and then retired. And I like to think that my mom spent 35 years in the military and retired because she was, along with him every step of the way. I
Yeah.
think she had the harder job, which was every time we moved, picking up and then reestablishing. And there were 4 kids in my house. So it was a lot. But yes, they've been happily married for, I don't know, almost 50 plus years now. So
Congrats to
yeah,
them. That's a big number.
yeah, it is. It
So
is.
you had so altogether it was 5 of you? 5
Just
kids?
so 4 of us,
Okay.
me
Okay.
included. Yeah.
How many, 2 brothers, 2 sisters, or?
So an older sister who's like 5.5 years older than me,
Mhm,
a younger sister who's 5.5 years younger than me, and then a younger brother who's 2 years younger than me. So I was number two,
mhm.
but kind of I was like the second phase because by the time I was coming of age, my older sister was already at school,
Ah,
like at college
okay.
and in the workforce.
So I was gonna ask, was your older sister, like, the house manager, but it seemed like you might have been.
So she was for a period of time, and then I think I shifted to that.
Okay.
But I mean, it's funny because she would come home, and all of a sudden, the order of how people would sit in the car, like she immediately got shotgun, right? And like
Right, right.
we'd all cycle back to like the next, preferred seat. And so that was, very, very orderly, but very funny, how that worked,
That's
growing up.
cool. I was the house manager, even though we all have an older brother. My stepdad, he has an older son who from a previous
Mhm.
relationship, but he is the oldest, and he definitely acts like the oldest when he's around. But when he's not around, I was in charge.
Nice. Nice.
What type of activities did you do growing up?
So it was for me, I think the most consistent activity was figuring out what I could do in the areas around my house
Mhm,
that would just be fun. And I say that from like, I played organized sports like soccer and baseball and stuff like that. But I think the most consistent activity was like, okay, if I lived near like, a wooded area, like we'd take toys and like go create like, big areas of, battles or whatever it might be.
yeah.
Or we didn't live near any wooded area. So we like would play like street lacrosse on rollerblades.
Wow.
Like, so we were constantly just trying to like come up with new things to do. And I think the biggest thing about it was, moving around, but also living around a lot of kids who were also moving around. You kind of figured out things that you could play and do that would bring the groups together, right? Bring all these individuals together. At least that was always my perspective.
Mhm.
Because it really stinks if you've just moved into a place, you see a bunch of kids playing, and they don't invite you to come out and
Right.
play. Like that's tough. So we'd always try to find something where we could like integrate, whomever was
Mhm.
new, because we expected that when we were new, we'd want that same behavior exhibited toward us.
Right, putting out so you can get that back. I feel that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so when you reached high school, did your parents encourage you to go to college, or what happened with that?
Yeah, there was an expectation in my house that we would go to college, but also that we'd figure out a way to pay for college.
Mm.
So it wasn't like, hey, I mean, I grew up in a military
Yeah.
family. There's not we can look it up online what people in the military make,
Yeah.
and it's not a lot.
I
I
know.
mean, it's a it's a healthy wage in some areas of the country, but it's definitely you're scraping by if you have 4 kids. And so it was, there is an expectation that you continue your education, but you need to figure out a way to pay for it.
Right.
And so I applied for a ROTC scholarship, decided that I was going to go into the military for 4 years at a minimum coming out of college. I'd be an officer
Mhm.
in the Air Force. And that worked for me. And in fact, it worked for all of the 3 other kids in my family as well.
Awesome.
They all went into the Air Force via the same route. And so, yeah, we were encouraged, but it came with a catch.
Yeah. Did they encourage you to go to a specific branch, or you were just like, I'm cool with the Air Force, so I'm going to go with the Air Force?
So it's my grandfather, while he was still, he lived until he was almost 97, was a Navy.
Mhm.
He was a Navy man. And he was always like, go Navy. But, and then my other grandfather was in the Army.
Okay.
And he was a little less go Army. But, but, we just grew up in the Air Force. We're very comfortable with how that service worked,
Mhm.
and it just I like to think that the second my older sister went along that path, we really didn't stray from it. I mean, we all ended up actually going to the University of Virginia. We
Wow.
all did ROTC at the University of Virginia, and three of the four of us retired from the Air Force,
Wow. That's
or will
awesome.
retire. My sister's still active.
Mhm.
My younger sister's still active. I'm the miscolored sheep. I'm the one that I got out early. So,
I mean,
but
I did 4 years in the Marines and I did 5 in the Army National Guard, and I got out and I got what I needed. I got the free schooling, and that's all I wanted. So I'm with you.
well, thank you for your service.
My
That's
pleasure.
awesome.
Thank you for your service.
For sure.
One thing that I didn't even think to make sure I asked you was, a lot of people don't talk about ROTC at the college level or higher ed
Hmm.
level. How was your experience doing that?
Yeah. So, the ROTC program it stands for Reserve Officer Training Corps. And it really is, how do they build into the curriculum of the college, military studies, training, all that sort of stuff. So, like once a week, we had to wear our uniform around campus,
Mm,
and it was every Tuesday.
okay.
And that same day, we would have half the day would be call it a leadership lab, where we would go and spend a ton of time doing activities that were either like drilling or kind of something around leadership, and within the entire cadet corps. And that was really interesting. I
Mhm.
mean, you learned a lot about leadership as you were a college student who really didn't have, you're just learning about responsibility. You're learning about like having to wash dishes and
Right.
like wash your clothes and like all that. And you have to mix in this leadership training. So that was interesting. And then the rest of it was just, there was a course that we had to take that gave us military history and like how you learn from previous successes and failures and all that sort of stuff. So part of it was kind of like extracurricular, part of it was very academic,
Mhm.
and at the end you get commissioned into the service of your that you've been training in,
Mhm.
and you end up as an officer, and you in the Air Force you owe 1 year for every year that they paid for school.
Oh,
So I
okay.
owed them 4 years at the end of undergrad.
Thanks for explaining that. I don't think I ever took the time out to like truly know the ins and outs of that. So thank you for talking about that. Now, I feel
Of
like we
course.
did touch on kind of why you joined, but I still feel like I want to ask, why did you join the Air Force?
I well, I'll take it from the point of why did I join the Air Force versus other services. I wanted to be a chemical engineer,
Okay.
and I wanted to be just an engineer in general, but I wanted to be a chemical engineer. And the Air Force has the reputation of being the most technical of the
Yeah,
services
that's for sure.
and having the most opportunity for different types of engineering. So like each of the services have civil engineers, each of the services have, kind of mechanical engineers. But if you're in these more specialty areas, the Air Force tends to have more opportunity. And so that's really what drove my decision making. Now, I'd be being silly if I didn't say that my father was like, hey, blue is what you're gonna wear. Right? I mean, he retired as a 3-star general,
Right.
so he He's very through and through blue. And so there was a bit of, he did very well. We were kind of indoctrinated throughout our lives that the Air Force was where it was at.
Okay. Okay, that's what's up. Why did you decide to get
Yeah.
out?
So it's a little complicated. I was commissioned in 2000,
Okay. Oh
and
man.
so 9/11
Yeah.
happens, and we are at war. We're deploying people to the Middle East, and I'm raising my hand, like I want to be deployed.
Mhm.
I want to go. And they didn't want, at that point, engineers and acquisitions officers, which were my two specialty codes.
Mhm.
They didn't want to deploy those people. And I was like, okay, but I really want to go help.
Yeah.
And they didn't want it. And then I started a family,
Mhm.
and I was in school full time as a graduate student while I was balancing being an officer full time, which
Wow.
was really, really tricky. And they started deploying engineers and acquisitions officers, but they were deploying them to do like not that sort of job.
Yeah.
They were like kind of fill in
Yeah.
jobs. And I just felt like there was a undervalued or a lesser value being placed on the role that we were playing,
Mhm.
and that I could be of service differently, in a different in kind of a different part of the broader community. And so I decided to separate because I saw our interests were diverging.
Yeah.
And so I was gung ho, and I still am. I'm thankful for the Air Force and for everything that it gave me,
Mhm.
but I saw the ability to do and provide service in a different way. And I decided it was probably time for me to depart, because I didn't really want to go spend a year doing a job that I wasn't really trained for and that wasn't using my skill set, where I was just kind of a warm body filling a role.
Right.
So you might call that selfish. I called it pragmatic at the time. And that was what led to my decision.
Oh, I would say that you did what was best for you because that's what we all have to do.
Well, I'd like to think that I mean, you served. There is a bit of service before self, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, you get to choose what your service looks like,
Agreed.
and that was I hit that point.
How was your transition from being in the military to going back to being a civilian? Was it tough?
So it wasn't as tough as it could have been, because I actually went to go work at a large think tank policy institution called the Rand Corporation. And Rand started as being solely focused on defense, and they're about 80 years
Wow.
old now. And you'll hear them referenced in movies, and like Dr. Strangelove was associated with, that whole concept associated with Rand, and the Pentagon Papers, which was a huge thing that happened during the Vietnam era,
Mhm.
affiliated with Rand. And so when I left the military, I went to Rand, and one of my main, clients, if you will, but really one of my main partners in doing the research that we were doing was the military,
Wow.
was the federal government. And so I really never stepped away from service.
Mhm.
Immediately, I was doing research and writing about interoperability between aircraft, and design of future satellites, and looking at logistical supply chains and stuff like that to try to help the military be better. So my transition was a little bit easier in the sense that the topic area stayed roughly the same.
Mhm.
I had more freedom,
Yeah.
and I had great access. The sponsors for our work were typically general officers or the equivalent, so we could go and do the research and take them to the decision maker and say, "Hey, this is what we've found." And so you got to see a lot of impact that I might not have seen as a captain or a major in the Air Force.
Do you feel like you got to see the bigger picture, bigger than like you just said, like what a captain would probably see versus a colonel?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, one of the projects that that I led was looking at the global supply chain for medical supplies
Mm-hmm.
and how we source medical supplies to U.S. embassies, but also troops overseas. And I went around the world, like literally went around the world to all of our supply depots for the U.S. in these austere locations, trying to understand, okay, why do we have these things here? How does it best support our troops? How can we better support them? Like, what are some ways that we could find efficiencies, not just cost, but also time efficiencies and whatnot? And so I would have never gotten a chance as a captain to do that, or even as a major to do that. I would have
Mm-hmm.
been, in charge of one of those depots maybe, but I wouldn't have really seen kind of the full picture of, okay, well, here's how we move things, and here's how we store things, and here's how we distribute things, and like kind of the end to end, top to bottom picture I wouldn't have seen.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Now, this next
Sure.
segment is called Digging Deeper. And during this segment, I'll ask you some thought provoking questions about your career and personal life. So, are you ready to dig in?
Great. Let's do it.
All right. So, can you tell us about your company, Lotic AI, for those who don't know?
Sure. So Lotic is a company focused on producing what I call behavioral AI. We develop artificial relational intelligence, which lots of people hear about large language models like ChatGPT or Gemini. Those models are not meant to mimic human interaction.
Okay.
And although you can ask it a question, it's you asking the question. There's not a conversation happening.
Okay.
And what we found and what we believe in is that to actually use technology to its fullest to help someone, you need to help that person explore who they are. And to do that, you need to engage them in conversation. And so we've built this artificial relational intelligence
Hmm.
that it's not a chatbot. And it's not even like really functioning as a chatbot. It's the way that you interact with it is far more like an interpersonal interaction, which means you draw more detail out of yourself and then you can make more sense of it. This is important because the world is only getting more complicated, and technology is getting, I mean, it's exploding, right?
Yeah.
There's just so much. Well, how do we make our way as an individual? How do we make our way through that mess? You need to understand yourself better. You need to have tools that are specific to you. And so, what our artificial relational intelligence allows for is that we can tune it. It tunes itself to the individual. And then it also stores everything, all of your data, everything that you've shared, everything that you kind of put into your data set. um, it stores it all in one space
Hmm.
by itself. So we're not like intermixing. If you're one of our users and I'm one of our users, our data is not intermingled.
Okay.
You have your data set, I've got my data set. So there's like tremendous amount of privacy and security and that sort of
Are
thing.
you asking for
Um,
social security numbers or stuff like that? I'm
No,
just,
no, no, we don't need that. No, no, but it's actually a really good question. Like, I don't even need to know where you live. I don't need to know how old you are. I don't need to know your gender affiliation. I don't need to know any of that. We do need to have something that allows us to identify you as you, right? Because there's a way that we have to make sure that we've, run through the right security protocols with multi-factor and whatnot to get you into your data set. We're a voice first platform. So the primary way of collecting data is people talking into our system
hmm.
for like 2 to 3 minutes at a time. And so we need voice authentication and stuff like that so that, that system stays specific to you.
Hmm.
But it really is, it's really, you're sharing with it what you want to get out of it.
And when you say
And
that,
yeah.
in what ways can it help me better my life?
So we've had people, as the owner and chief technology officer of the company. I can't dig into anybody's data. So again, if you were, if there's the Sharryse data set,
Hmm.
I can't go into that and explore it. So a lot of the feedback that I'm about to share with you is stuff that people have shared with us
Okay.
after the fact. So we've had people come back to us and say, you saved our marriage.
Wow.
You saved my marriage with my spouse, because we were able to individually work through some things that we had and then come together and actually, solve some problems that were standing in our way of having a thriving relationship. We had somebody else come and say, you actually fixed my relationship with my boss. I was going to have to quit my job, and I didn't actually have another option,
Hmm.
but I felt like I was going to have to quit or I was going to get fired because I just could not work with my boss.
Hmm.
And like, we ended up like fixing that,
Wow.
because, and again, we didn't do it, they did it with our system. And so that's the sort of thing that people can get out of just taking the time to understand yourself, taking the time to know yourself.
So I guess I want to know a little bit more of how I could make this work for me. And as far as like maybe I want to, I don't know, become healthier and exercise more. Am
Hmm.
I talking into
Hmm.
it saying like what are the steps that I can do to lose, I don't know, over 173 pounds, or I don't know. I'm 173
Hmm.
pounds. What do I do to lose 20 pounds?
Yeah. So I have used it to better understand like my sleep patterns and to better understand like when to work out.
Mhm.
So I actually gave and I'm not going to run through it all right now, but I can maybe give you the link afterwards. I gave a TEDx talk in Palo Alto at the end of last year, and it was about this very subject, which is how I've used this system to understand myself better, to adjust when I work out during the day,
Mhm.
and to adjust some of those aspects of my active life. And so you can set goals and you can set intentions, and then you need to be talking about the totality of your life, right? Because changing or affecting your workout regime, well, that's going to affect your nutrition. It's going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect your job. It's going to affect your sleep. It's going to affect your, environment around you. Like, there's so many things that'll come into play. And so that's one of the things that's so valuable to our system, is that we want you to explore all that stuff.
Mhm. Okay.
We want you to explore, okay, you have this goal, but this thing you're doing way over here is kind of counteracting that. And like, here are some things that you could think about to make both of those uh, concepts work, or both of those things work for you together to help you reach that goal.
Okay. Thank you for breaking that down for us. So, can you
Sure.
give us the backstory or the background story of how you even came up with this in the first place?
Yeah. So it really was that this mess of a world that we're in right now, from a change perspective, everything is changing at such a fast rate. And when I say mess, I don't mean negative, right? It's just a lot. Like, there are societal changes, there are political changes, there are financial changes, there are technological changes, and the speed at which they're happening is so fast. It's very easy for an individual to throw their hands up in the air and be like, I've got an idea. I'm going to like let Meta decide for me.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm going to let Google decide for me. I'm just going to throw up my hands. And if Amazon says I need it, I'm going to order it. Right.
Yeah.
But that's actually not a very fulfilling way to live, nor is it really sustainable. We need to know at a tool level what we can use to inform what we should do individually. And so I was really inspired by, hey, there are a bunch of people out there that aren't served by advanced technology, they're used by it.
Yeah.
How can we get them in a position where they're served by it? How can I design something that, whether you live in the Mississippi Delta region of Arkansas, or you live in Los Angeles, in Santa Monica, that you have the same tools available to you?
That's amazing.
And that's what we've gotten to.
Awesome. Can you tell us, or maybe, I mean, you might know, I would assume you would know because you've been doing this for a while now. Can you tell us why some people are just afraid of AI technology?
It is. We are afraid of those things we cannot see. There is there are so many things that in concepts, other sorts of things, that it is easier for us to write it off as something that's not real, or be afraid of it,
Yeah.
right? Because we just can't see it, and it's hard to understand when we can't see it. And it's also extremely complicated. So uh, no one does us favors. There's not a heck of a lot of technology companies out there that are like, hey, by the way, this is how the algorithms work, right? They're doing this with your data.
Right.
Instead, it seems like it's a race to how can I exploit the person's data as quickly as possible without them knowing about it and sell them the next thing, right? And that makes it sound quite malicious, but like that's kind of the behaviors that we're seeing from large technology companies. And so, how do we, and even from, it's not just technology companies, it's from governments, it's from lots of large organizations, right? And so, I think people fear what they can't see and what they don't understand. I mean, that's a understatement. And there isn't a path toward understanding that's been made available.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's just people who are living in, you know, rural America or suburbia, or who only have a high school degree, or who never finished high school, or only have an undergraduate, or whatever it might be. Like, we have elected officials who I've sat down with who are going to give talks on policy related to technology, and they don't know the first thing about it. And I'll tell you, the first time that I ran into that,
Mm-hmm.
that was scary for me.
Mm-hmm.
That made me fearful. I was like, wait a minute, this person is voting on policies related to this, and I'm having to explain like the basics to them. And that's not their fault.
Right.
Like, things are moving so fast. How do they keep up? And so it's how do we get everyone to kind of move along in a nice pattern and path to understanding as these things are changing? Like, how do we keep everybody up with the pace?
I feel like that's a good transition into this next question. What are some tips that you could give our listeners who want to use AI technology in a healthy way?
Don't be afraid of failing. There are so many tools that are out there right now that you can go and you can learn how to code in a particular language, or learn how to build a this or build a that. Go try it, right? Be okay with it not working out. Don't get frustrated when the first time that you're messing around with it, that it doesn't work, or that you get a critical failure. Don't just throw it away and be like, oh, this isn't for me, or it's too complicated, or whatever. Like, play around with it. Like, it's actually quite hard to do very terrible damage when you're in these kind of sandboxes. And so play and explore and ask questions. Uh, One of the things that, and I know you have a rant aspect at the end of your program, as I've seen before, but like, one of the things that frustrates me is that people are too proud to say they don't know something, right?
Agreed.
And I like to say that if I walk into the room and I'm the smartest person in the room, I am in the wrong room,
I agree.
right? Because if I walk in there thinking that, then I've walked in with the mindset of I can't learn anything from anybody else here. And in fact, no doubt every room I walk into, whether it's a virtual room like this or a room of 100 people, I can learn something from every single one of those individuals.
I agree.
And so ask questions, try things, experiment, ask questions, admit that you don't know. And that's how you get to an understanding of what AI can bring to the table. That's how you get to an understanding of what, it can offer.
One thing I'd probably like to add to that is closed mouths don't get fed. So if you're too proud to speak up, then you won't get the help you need anyway. So I'm with
Yep,
you.
that's a great phrase.
5 years from now, where do you see Lotic?
I would like to see it proliferated across the globe as a model by which people can, in a safe and vulnerable and trusted way, explore themselves so they understand the best next steps to take for their livelihood, for their health, for, extending the healthy parts of their lives, extending their joy, etc. And I'm apt to say, and this kind of makes my, investors annoyed sometimes, and others like roll their eyes at me, but if it's Lotic that they're using, great. If it's another system that comes along that has the same, kind of moral compass and values and has just done it a little bit better than us, fantastic, right? Like I'll sleep well at night if that's the case. But I want to see humans 5 years from now, we should be talking about how much agency we each have to make our own decisions, to be able to chart our own path, to understand what's happening to us when we're thrust into the healthcare system, or we're thrust into making a financial decision, or whatever it might
Yeah.
be, to really be informed. I'd rather us have agency and decision making power and be part of the discussion than be an object that's just getting moved around and pushed around and hoping that we might buy something, right? And if 5 years from now we have that agency, we have that sovereignty, I think we've won. But we have to work at it.
Well, I vote for winning. So,
yay, let's do it.
as a CEO, what are some challenges you face running a business that people may not be privy to? I don't get a chance to talk to too many CEOs, so.
Well, it depends on the business for sure. And it depends how big the business is. There's a lot of challenges. I think I'll choose. I'll choose to focus on just one.
Okay.
And I know this isn't like it's a thing that's been in the news a lot in the U.S.
Okay.
With the new administration, there's a focus on maybe limiting the focus on DEI.
Okay.
And I really believe that one of the hardest things to do as a leader, and specifically as a CEO, is to make sure that you have an organization that represents the constituency that you are serving. So if you're looking to represent the entire, or to serve the entire United States, you sure as heck better have employees that kind of represent what the entire United States looks like, thinks like,
Mm-hmm.
acts like. I mean, people talk about diversity and they think about the color of skin, but it's also the way you think, from a political standpoint. It's the way you are from a socioeconomic standpoint. Like there's lots of different things that bring diversity to the table. And I think that one of the hardest things as a CEO is to keep your eye on making sure you are as diverse as possible as an organization.
Mm.
And it brings so much to the table. I'll argue tooth and nail with anybody who wants to say differently. I can't tell you what it is like to be a Black woman in the United States. I can't. I won't start to. Right?
Yeah.
I won't start to. But like, I've got to have somebody who knows.
Yeah.
Well, I need to include those voices. And so I think it's one of the hardest things. And as a leader, you can take your finger off that pulse and you can say somebody else will do it, and you'll end up with a one tone, kind of one perspective set of individuals. And that's where you have products that come out and are biased when they hit the market, right? It isn't because people were nefarious or malicious. It's just because they didn't know any better.
Right.
And they didn't keep their finger on the pulse to make sure that they were as diverse and inclusive as possible.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
What's some advice you would give someone who wants to start their own business?
Be ready to be disappointed. There are so many disappointments, and there are so many struggles, and there are so many things that make you question who you are, question what you're doing. And there many, many people who are willing to point their finger and say, "Oh, that's what you did wrong. Oh, you're not the leadership type," or, this is why an engineer shouldn't look at, business problems,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it might be. There are lots of people who are willing to, you might guess that some of the things I just brought up are things that I've heard. And it's demoralizing,
Yeah.
and it can be really tiring. And so you have to be prepared for that. You have to be thick-skinned. You have to know that what you're doing, you're driven to do it for a reason that's going to keep you rising above those sorts of comments, rising above those sorts of challenges, rising above the failures that you will have. And so if you have the appetite for that, if you can go into something with an open mind of, I may fail, I may have to change everything I'm doing to succeed. If you go in with that mindset, you're going to be okay. If you go in with anything else, you're going to find yourself really, really struggling more so than you need to, and likely not succeeding.
What do you do to decompress when you're going through certain things like that?
So I think it's different obviously it's going to be different for
Right.
everybody. I, it makes me crazy when people are like, just be mindful for like 5 minutes, like bring yourself to the present. I'm like, yo, I am always in the present. like I am always in the present. For me, it was finding something where I could release my mind from the from anything around me, yet have it be fully engaged.
Okay.
And so for me, I found boxing.
Nice.
And because I was going nuts. I'm like, I have to find something. And I was trying a bunch of different things and like, stay active and blah, blah. And I was doing all the different pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd always wanted to try boxing. And I walked into this gym that is just amazing here in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, I started, throwing punches, and I started trying to figure out what a jab was versus what a cross is, and like what the footwork is. And all of a sudden I realized that like for 45 or 50 minutes, my entire brain turned off from everything else, because all it was thinking about was like, where are my feet and where are my arms? And are my shoulders correct? Are my elbows correct? Are my wrists coming off correctly? Am I holding correct? Like all this sort of stuff. And I figured out a way to basically remove myself from myself.
Mm.
And I encourage people to try to find that. It's uncomfortable to find it, right? Like it was not comfortable for me to walk into a gym with a bunch of dudes and women who are like jacked, right? like they
Yeah.
are huge. And these people are thankfully very, very sweet, but like they're intimidating,
Yeah.
right? And people are throwing punches against bags and like in the ring and like knocking each other. And I'm like, whoa. But taking the leap of faith of, okay, I can try this and I can belong here.
Yeah.
I can find something, that I can find something here that if it's worthwhile that I want to pursue. And it was about the third or fourth thing that I had tried,
Mm-hmm.
and it really stuck. And that's how I decompress. When I'm just way in my head on things, I'll just go to the boxing gym, and even if I'm there by myself, like it all goes away.
Well, for me to decompress, I like doing my podcast. To be honest, for
Boom.
real,
Love it.
I was when I was in the Marines, I could just go sign up for some training and leave, and I know that I don't have to answer my phone. I didn't have any responsibilities back then, and so if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
by my phone for 2 weeks, who's checking for me? My parents, they know where I'm at or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
so I can't do anything like that now. But
Right.
so my podcast and like probably I just started getting into Pilates. So
Oh, wow.
yeah. So that's where I'm at with
Oh, that's awesome.
everything now. But I just remember that like I miss being able to leave a situation and just like be out of sight, out of mind type of thing. And I'm okay with, and
Yep.
I was okay with that. I was okay with no social media. Back then, social media wasn't really big. It was like MySpace and Facebook was kind of whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, and now I can't do those things. So I look for new ways. So I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's going to be different for
Oh,
everybody,
for sure.
and some people are, yeah, some people are really good at being mindful and that taking up their whole body. I'm not. I've tried. I've tried.
Well, I appreciate
So
you being transparent. Thank you for that. Before we move on to the next segment, can you tell everyone about your book?
sure. So one of the long-term goals of starting this company was that I wanted to see if I could create a platform that served to close a socioeconomic gap.
Mhm.
And that's like a really, really big thing to try to bite
It
off.
is. It's good luck.
And so I had, and to be very brief about it, I had in the 2016 timeframe. So I founded the company in 2020. In 2016, I was still at Rand, and I was talking with some of my favorite collaborators at other organizations, and we were talking about the redistribution of wealth. We were talking about universal basic income. All those things that were being discussed during what ended up being the Clinton-Trump election.
Hmm.
And the the thing we concluded was you're never, at least in the United States, you're never really going to get to a steady state where you can redistribute wealth and everyone sees themselves as a winner, right? So like if you're taking from the rich by taxing them a lot and then redistributing to the rich see themselves as losers, the poor see themselves as winners. That's, not necessarily going to stick around for more than 4 to 8 years.
Hmm.
The reverse of that, if you are just allowing the rich, all these tax breaks and the poor are not receiving any support, now you've got the alternate winner loser situation, and that's not going to last for very long because it drives up huge amounts of costs for social services and whatnot.
Hmm.
And so, how could we create a win-win, or at least a win neutral? And we concluded that you needed to find something where people could accrue wealth that wasn't typical dollarized wealth.
Break that down.
So it wasn't how do I earn more dollars? It was how do I accrue wealth that isn't dollars from the beginning. And so we started thinking about, okay, well, what assets do people have that are universal?
Hmm.
So if you have $10 million or you have $10, what are those things that you're the same?
And what did you guys come up
And
with?
it turns out, what's
And what
that?
did you guys come up with?
It turns out that the data that you create is the same. And so if I give you the same devices and the same tools as I give to a person who has $10 billion, I'm assuming you don't have $10 billion.
Not today.
Okay. I wish it upon you.
Great.
Yeah. But I know I don't. So, but if I give you and I the same devices to the person, to the same person who has $10 billion, we can create the same amount of data. Now, one might say, yes, but the $10 billion person, like their data is more valuable because they have $10 billion. And actually, their data is maybe less valuable because of that, because they can buy whatever they want,
Yeah.
right? They already have tremendous purchasing power, like almost unlimited purchasing power, which means that brands can easily get to them. It's harder for brands to get to me. It's harder for brands to get to you because they have to think about like, what's my inventory cost and what am I coming out with this year? And how do I know the tastes and preferences of the people that, where they're trying to figure out how they're going to spend their money.
Right.
And if we have more data for each of us, then we have the opportunity to share that data with companies. Now, all of a sudden we have a position of wealth.
Yeah.
right? Because if a company knew that a community that they've been trying to access is all focused on one particular aspect of their product line, they wouldn't go to the trouble of creating the other products for that community,
Right.
which would save them a lot of money and maybe allow them to actually access that community and sell to them.
That's pretty cool.
And so the concept was, can we create this, this space for additional wealth, an additional wealth kind of generation space? And we believe it's via data. And we believe it's via spoken word data, because that is the richest set of context that you can get about someone. It pulls everything about you together.
Wow.
And if you have that, you have a data set that is richer than what Google has on you. It's richer than what Meta has on you. It's richer than what Amazon has on you. It's richer than what Apple has on you, et cetera. Like, you have the most powerful set of data available about you, and you own it. And there is value there. And so for me, it was worth writing about. And will Lotic do that? I don't know. Do I hope it does it? Of course I do. But do I think that in the future we have to come up with a different way to accrue wealth? Yes. Yes. And do I think it's going to have to do with data? Yes.
Whoa, where can people get this book from?
So it should be out on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and in bookstores at the beginning of October, end of September, beginning of October of this year.
Okay.
And it's called The Story Economy.
Wow. Very powerful.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm going to read it and I'm going to give you an honest review.
I want one. That is the only type of review I want,
Awesome.
which is honest review. And I hope people disagree with me.
No, yeah.
Right? Like, because in disagreeing, they'll come up with the answer.
That's true. Or you guys can come up with something
Right?
together. Maybe someone says something super thought provoking. You're like, wow, you got a point.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So the next segment is called Uncomfortable Questions. This is something new that I've added to my podcast, so I'm excited. I've only done it a couple of times. And during this segment, I'll ask you either or questions. But the catch is you have to pick one and give an explanation as to why you chose it.
Okay.
So the first one
Okay, let's
is
do it.
living on a beach with no clothes or living in the Amazon with no clothes.
Okay, so I'm kind of thinking that, okay, I have more options on, you're not going to get the answer that you want in terms of, I'm now going to weigh those against each other. So I have more options in the Amazon to like create shelter and to probably find food and whatnot, but there are far more risks. And like there are risks of different types of like creepy crawlies and like other sorts of things attacking me, and I don't have certain types of shelter on my body. But then if I'm on the beach, I've got to deal with the sun at all times, and I don't know what kind of natural resources I'm going to have around me. If I have shade, so I'm probably going with, if it's a beach that has shade and has some sort of like vegetation around it, I'm probably doing that because I think the risk of uh, infection and other sorts of things in the Amazon might be pretty high.
Okay. I respect it. I will choose the Amazon. Even though I'm terrified of spiders, I know I could probably get, maybe there's a 20-foot anaconda waiting to eat me. I don't know. But I'm still going with the Amazon because I don't want to be in the sun on the beach and the sand is just too much. Too much.
Yeah, the sand does get everywhere.
Exactly. And I can't do that part.
Yeah. Awesome.
Eating your favorite food for the rest of your life or whatever you want except meat.
So, kind of thinking Oh, so any meat.
Yeah,
So
like absolutely no meat of any kind. But you can eat whatever else.
So here's the problem. I have to choose the first one because, and I'm not even sure what it would be that I like, what even my favorite food is, because I kind of like all kinds of
Yeah.
food, except for the ones I'm allergic to.
Oh.
And I'm allergic to a lot of different types of nuts, which are like if you want proteins, outside of some meat, then you're kind of stuck.
Yep.
And so it really limits me quite a bit. So I like to tend toward pescatarian in my life just in general. Like I tend to be very thoughtful about where I get my proteins. But I think that if I were to completely swear off all meat, I might be in trouble from a protein
Oh
standpoint.
yeah, for sure. With your nut allergy, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about
I
you?
think I think I would cut out the meat because I don't have a nut allergy. And I went
Yeah,
vegan for like a month just to try it. And it was okay. It wasn't that bad.
I believe that.
But I love chicken. Like hands down. Like I could eat chicken every day and
Yeah.
so I could eat my favorite food every day, but I think I would prefer to eat whatever I wanted and just leave meat alone. I could do that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Marriage or a lifelong partner?
Hmm. So it's interesting. I'm not sure the difference. So I am
Mm-hmm.
married. I think that um you make commitment and it doesn't always play
Oh
out,
yeah.
right? Because people change and people evolve, and like I'm the last person to cast judgment about breakups or
Yeah.
divorces or whatever it might be. Uh the difficulty is that is like the tax nonsense, right? Like there are so many like taxes and healthcare and all this other stuff that's made far more difficult if you haven't done this like kind of arbitrary thing of getting
Yeah.
married, right? Like, and that part, and I know some states have different rules on
Yeah.
this, but I think that's the part that's really hard for me to say. Probably if you're looking to live in a symbiotic kind of relationship where you both have like access to the same sorts of things and that you can both um, provide for one
Mm-hmm.
another. The easiest way to provide for one another is if you have that kind of marriage
Yeah.
contract. And that stinks because I think that it is kind of like an arbitrary, and I was raised in the church,
Mm-hmm.
so like I recognize that what I'm saying is a little bit of a blasphemy, but like
Oh,
it is a bit
you're
arbitrary.
good because I was raised
Um,
in the church too, so it's all good.
yeah. So anyway, it's marriage is a bit arbitrary, but I think it's all about the commitment is the part that matters. Um, I am for commitment. I do believe that that's super important.
Okay. I rock with that. I would say I would go with lifelong partner if I had $10 billion. Because I don't want anyone to take that from me.
Yes. Yes. Love
Yeah,
it. Love it.
but Sharryse in this day, sure, marriage all the way.
Okay. All right.
But if
All
I'm
right.
getting the 10 billion, I'm not getting married.
Ah,
Because I don't want to
I
pay
love it.
alimony to someone if they want to divorce me for whatever reason.
Right? I mean, there's the goods and the bads of that legal contract.
Mm-hmm. End world hunger or end all wars?
Um, I I think that you don't have to go any further than walking in New York City to see that, especially in America, we waste so much food.
Mm.
And I think that humans are drawn to friction. So I don't know how reasonable it is to say that we end all wars. I would love to see that happen. I'd love to see world peace. But I think a more near-term thing that we could do is really hit on this hunger thing. And, I unfortunately, war often leads to famine. And so maybe I should be saying end all wars, because that'll solve some of the famine problem. This interrelated thing is difficult,
Right.
right? But it is, I can't stand, just thinking about it right now gets me in a different headspace. But like, just because a child is born in a very particular part of the world, they don't have food.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? We can produce enough food, and maybe that won't always be the case, but I'd kind of bet on it. And I don't know if we can stop arguing with one another.
Yeah, we
So,
probably can't. But I agree with you. I would want to end world hunger if we could. I believe, like you said, we can. I've seen restaurants, and like I used to work at Lowe's Foods. I don't know if you guys have a Lowe's
mhm.
in Texas, but I worked in the deli department back when I was in undergrad. And we used to have to throw out the meat. And I'm like, why? It's fine. It's what? Like we had to throw out all the
Yeah,
extra scraps and everything. And it's like this could like go feed someone.
yep,
So
yeah. I saw a thing in New Orleans, because I've been spending a lot of time in the southeast, and or specifically the Delta region, and I saw a restaurant that I went to in New Orleans, that was kind of like just a chill sandwich place,
hmm
and they had essentially like a closet of sorts outside, that at the end of the day they just populated everything that was left over for people to come and just take,
mm,
which I thought was really awesome,
wow, yeah, that
like
is
really
cool.
awesome.
I
Yeah,
wish I knew like that
and
here.
yeah, I would love to see that as a bit more of a model. I mean, they have some very specific reasons they can do it there because of the space that they're in and whatnot. But I thought it was really nice.
Yeah, I think so too. That is really cool. I wish we had it here. That's what I wish. Or
Yeah,
maybe they do and I don't know about it, but I try to give back to the community as often as I can, and I haven't come across anything like that. This next
yeah,
segment is called Rants with Sharryse. More of a update now. And so during Rants with Sharryse, you get to rant about anything you want. I know you did mention a rant earlier.
yep,
But it can be about not using signal lights, ending wars, whatever you want. But after you tell us whatever the rant is, you have to give us a solution to fix whatever it is that you're complaining about. And it doesn't have to be a complaint. Again, it could just be a pet peeve or whatever. But the floor is yours.
mm, interesting. What's yours?
My rant,
Yeah,
man. Oh my gosh. No one ever asked me what my rant is. So thanks. Hmm.
no problem.
I guess my rant today would be to make sure that you reach out to your loved ones when you're thinking about them. Because, like I told you earlier today, that one of my good friends passed away. I was literally thinking
Yeah,
about her yesterday. And normally, when I'm thinking about somebody, I do text them or I'll call or send a text, whatever. And like yesterday, I saw that she did a social media post like maybe like a week ago. So I was like, all right, I'll just hit her up another time. And then I found out that she passed away this morning. And so uh my solution to that is that whenever you're thinking about someone, please reach out to them because you don't know
yeah,
when they're gonna go. You don't know when you might not
yep,
ever get that chance again to say hi, to check in. I didn't. She died from breast cancer, and
hmm,
I knew that she had breast cancer, but I didn't know that it had gotten that bad that she's been in the hospital for months, you know? So if I would have checked up on her yesterday, maybe I could have said something to her before, things ended for her. So That's my rant.
I think that's
That's a
I
sad
think
rant.
that's a
I'm
really
sorry, but that's what's on the agenda today.
no. I'm really sorry for your loss. I think it's an important reminder. It's hard. Like we talked about the speed of life, and like how things are moving really fast and whatnot. And it is hard to pause and just check in on people. I am terrible at it.
Yeah.
Terrible. Um, and then we get hit with these reminders like what you experienced this morning, and they shock us back into place. And the thing is, how do we hold on to that shock for a little while?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So am I still supposed to
You
answer, or
are.
was I
You
able
are
to?
still supposed to give your
Oh, okay.
rant. We don't get
I
out
was
of
going to
it.
deflect to you. All right. So I I have when my daughter turned 18, I agreed that I would get a tattoo, and because she wanted to get a tattoo, so I was like, we'll go get tattoos together. And that led to, as I think maybe it happens a lot, like I have now a few tattoos.
Mhm.
And one of them, it's on my arm right here, and it says, "Consider you might be wrong."
Oh, wow.
And the thing that, if you want to take it as a rant or just as a something to think about,
Okay.
when you go into a situation, you very well could be wrong, right? Like it's possible you don't have the right information. It's possible you don't have all the information. It's possible you don't know what the other person's thinking about. It's likely you don't know what the other person's thinking about. It's truly, if you hadn't shared that, like, you had lost a friend this morning, like, what how would I respond if we started talking about death? Would I have like said something that, you would have been like, oh my gosh, why would that guy say
Right.
that, what a jerk? And I'd be like, what do you mean, what a jerk? And I would have to admit, well, like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I was a jerk. Because like what I said is like not very, very thoughtful or feeling. People argue all the time, and like our political environment in the United States is more about arguments than it is about agreements. And like we actually do agree on a lot of things at the populist level, but we want to find those things we want to argue about, and we don't want to admit that we might be wrong.
Yeah.
Right? We want to hold our ground because that's what we do. It is only when you consider that you might be wrong that you're able to take a fresh look at where you are, and you may further entrench yourself in your position, because you're like, I've taken a look and like there's no doubt this is where I'm supposed to be sitting. But it may also open your minds to like, oh, well, I've been generalizing that everybody who, takes a welfare check, smokes and spends it on, alcohol and cigarettes. Like that's a generalization
Yeah,
of
it
mine. Like
is.
I'm wrong about that. Like actually a majority of those people are using it on food. Or, you know, I'm going to generalize that if, and this is something that I learned a few years ago, that I definitely thought it was the other way around. If you uh, loan money to people the less someone has, the more likely they're willing to pay back the loan,
Oh.
because they are essentially seeing this value that's being given to them. And this is why microfinance has been like really, really successful, particularly in Latin and South
Mm-hmm.
America, because there are these small loans that are given out and people will pay them back. And they have less of a problem with people paying them back than the large loans that people take out when they've got a lot of money and whatnot. So it is, that was a good example of like, hey, I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
So I walked around thinking one thing, and then like if I hadn't thought it and challenged myself to like research,
Mm-hmm.
I would never have known that it's the other way around. So I needed to consider that I might be wrong, do a little bit of research, talk to some experts, talk to some other people, get some different perspectives, and then move from there.
Thanks for sharing that. That was a good rant.
Sure. Yay.
Now, for my final question, can you please share your social media handles and website with our listeners so they can follow you?
Oh, awesome. So the website for Lotic is www.lotic.ai. If you want to try our system, you can go to getlotic.ai, and it's free just to try we have a demonstration system up. You can create an account. It's completely private, and completely free right now. And then social, I'm usually at William Welser, Welser. And then I'm the fourth. So it's at William Welser IV, are my social handles for almost everything.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure having you on. I had a great conversation with you today.
Thanks, Sharryse. And again, I apologize for your loss. I'll be praying for your friend, and really appreciate the conversation. It was great.
Thank you so much. And thank you for listening to Connect Like Minds.